Hey everyone, I hope you guys have been doing well. We're halfway through October, almost into November. That means we're almost into Christmas. I know I'm saying that and it's just October. But we need to be using things to kind of look forward to motivate us through the year, whatever it is. During these crazy times, we still have things to look forward to. For chapel today, I just want to tell you guys and focus a little bit on a really funny, well, I guess it's not funny, but an interesting story that's in the Bible that I've always thought was kind of crazy. But yeah, I always felt like I connect to it. And this story it's from Acts chapter 20, verses 7 to 12. If you, your teacher, or whoever you're with, you guys can get out your Bibles. I want you to follow along with me. Acts chapter 20, verses 7 to 12. Acts chapter 20, verse 7 to 12. And this is what it says. It says, "On the first day of the week, we came together to break bread. Paul spoke to the people, and because he intended to leave the next day, kept on talking until midnight." It's a long sermon. And there were many lamps in the upstairs room where we were meeting. Seated in a window was a young man named Eutychus, who was sinking into a deep sleep as Paul talked on and on. And when he was sound asleep, he fell to the ground from the third story and was picked up dead. Paul went down, threw himself on the young man, and put his arms around him. "Don't be alarmed," he said. "He's alive." Then he went upstairs and broke the bread and ate. And until daylight, he left. And the people took the young man home alive and were greatly comforted. This poor boy named Eutychus was upstairs on the third floor listening to a sermon by Paul, one of the greatest people in the Bible, and he falls asleep and falls out of this window and dies, but is resurrected. And I think this story is funny because I think I really relate to sleeping during sermons. Growing up, I would always sleep in sermons. It was a problem of mine. In fact, I think my mom really I blame my mom because she kind of let me build this habit of sleeping at church. Because when I was really young, it's almost like she let me lay on her lap. You know, she'd kind of rub my head when I was 4 or 5, and let me just sleep in the sanctuary during the sermons. I don't remember any of those sermons, and I still don't really remember a lot when I was younger, but she just let me sleep. But then as I started getting older, I think I started snoring, and I know I started snoring, and the snoring started building, and so she wouldn't let me sleep anymore. And so when I couldn't sleep on her lap, I started trying to find a new way to sleep. And I was one of those sleepers that I am one of those sleepers that just knocks out immediately. And it's kind of bad for me, because if I'm in a public place and I'm getting tired, I can't stay awake that long if I'm really sleepy. And so it's almost instant. And I had one of those church pews that were up to just up to here. And so it was right under my neck, and there was nothing supporting me. I wish the chair was a little bit up here so if I fall asleep, it could protect me, but there was nothing supporting the back of my head and my neck. And so if I got sleepy, I was the type of sleeper that I'd be like this, and I could feel my head just drop. And that's what would wake me up. And so I remember going like this, and then waking up, snapping my head, and people would be looking at me, and it was so embarrassing because it would happen 15 times during the sermon. And I would always fall asleep, and I kept getting in this habit of falling asleep. You know, I also relate to that concept of Paul's preaching until midnight. I had some pastors or preachers who could preach for 2 hours. Their sermons were 2 hours long. I don't know how. I'm a pastor now, and I don't know how people preach that long. It's an amazing gift. It's a skill of some sort, and I could not figure out how people could preach that long. So I'm like, man, 2 hours is a long nap. I could sleep a lot during a 2-hour sermon. And so that's what I would always do. But when I think back to it, and this is a little bit of different twist, because I don't think this is necessarily why Eutychus fell asleep and died when he fell out of the building. But the reason why I found myself sleeping in church, even when I got older, I still was kind of dozing off into sermons, or I couldn't stay awake, was not only did I also have this late nights on Friday or doing other things, but it wasn't because of the length of the sermon. Right? The length of the sermon wasn't the thing that kept me, that made me tired. It wasn't oh man, it's a long sermon, I'm so tired. But it was because I was bored and distracted, because I never spent time with Jesus before church. Right? I didn't do anything in my week, in the 6 days before Saturday, or the 6 days before whenever anyone goes to church. I wouldn't do anything to spend time with Jesus. So when I came to a place where Jesus was the focus, or a person was talking about Jesus, I had no interest in it. I was getting really tired. It'd be boring, and so if I got bored, it's easy for me to fall asleep. And so I just constantly got in this habit to fall asleep or get bored at spiritual events because I was never doing anything to get excited about Jesus before. And I think this might happen. I think some of you guys might relate to this. It might be boring to go to church. It might be boring to go to chapel. It might be boring to listen to this thing or be at this event that has to do with God, or following your parents along to midweek prayer, whatever it is, week of prayer at your church. Those things might seem boring to us, but I think they get boring to us because those are the only times that we spend time with Jesus. It's easy to get bored of events that we're only forced to go to spend time with Jesus. And, I think of it like this. Like, if we used to have this event in Ottawa called Blues Fest, and it was like a big music concert for the weekend, and a bunch of artists would come and we'd have some big names. So some years it'd be awesome. Everyone gets super excited for the big names. Even if you weren't going, even if you didn't listen to them when you knew it was a big name, you got pretty pumped up to go. But everyone always was booing or be really bored or wasn't feeling these like kind of no-name artists that existed. And those no-name artists, they just couldn't really get the crowd excited because no one knew who they were. No one ever listened to their EPs or their singles or whatever music that they dropped before. And I think I think of church kind of like that, in the sense of when you don't know who Jesus is, or you're not spending time with him, it's hard to get excited when you're at events that are there for him. Or it's hard to get excited or be focused at places that are about him. And the same way it is like when if you have to go to a concert, if you're forced to go to a concert and it's about somebody that you've never listened to, you're not really feeling the music, you're not going to be into it. But if it was a big name or someone that you liked, even if they came out and they had a bad show, and like the concert was bad, but the fact that that person was there, that famous artist that you love was there, that would get you pretty excited regardless. I think that's how it is we need to be with God, and that's how we need to be with Jesus. Even if we know that church might not be maybe the exact service that we look forward to or the exact same way that we expected or what we needed, when we know it's for Jesus, that should be enough to get us excited, to keep us awake, to keep us focused no matter what's happening. I think what we need to do, and the answer is this: when we spend time with Jesus before church, when we spend time with Jesus before chapel, before Pathfinders, before any event that you have that's for him or to help you grow towards him, it helps us be focused when we're present. So what are we doing to help ourselves be focused when we're present? What are we doing to spend time with Jesus before? And that's what we've been talking about in all of our chapels, in this reconnecting time and this time to reconnect with Jesus, reconnect with people around us. We need to be asking ourselves, what do I need to do to reconnect with God? Because Jesus wants us to spend time with him more than just an hour on Saturday, more than just an hour on Sunday, more than just 30 minutes or 20 minutes at chapel. He wants us to spend time with him every day, to grow in a relationship with him. And that's very easy, and there's many ways for us to do that. And so, if you're feeling like when you go to church, when you go to chapel, when you go to anything, you feel that it's hard to stay focused, ask yourselves, what am I doing to spend time with Jesus before? Take care, guys, and we'll keep staying connected, and we'll keep looking for ways for us to personally connect with Jesus.